Welcome everyone to my first official music production tutorial ever. Back when I first got into music production, I used to watch tutorial videos constantly. In fact, sometimes I still do. But all those videos helped me out tremendously, and so I thought, maybe it's my turn to give back to the community, help other musicians, and maybe even inspire some people out there. So with this video, I basically recorded myself every step of the way from the very beginning to the very end during the making of a lo-fi hip-hop track. I also decided to create two options for viewing. So I've made one long continuous video that goes from beginning to end, and I've also taken that same video and chopped it up into smaller, easier to digest, like 15 to 20 minute pieces, all combined into a single playlist. So most people will probably gravitate toward that naturally. I wanted to at least provide the option for people who want the whole video in its entirety from the beginning to end, simply because I'm the crazy bastard who for some reason preferred the long continuous videos. This particular track is a track that I made under my moniker Lord Shongo. That is a moniker that I use for lo-fi hip-hop productions. Sometimes I create songs using my SP404, my Tascam 4-track cassette recorder, Ableton, I use Machina, all sorts of things. So in this particular case, I'm going to be using Ableton. Obviously with using a computer, it's not going to be lo-fi, so we have to do certain things that are going to give it the lo-fi aesthetic. One of the first things I do when making lo-fi hip-hop is find a vinyl crackle sound. Now the original sample that we're using does have some crackle in it, but not a whole lot, especially the parts that I want to flip. So what I'm going to do is come over here. I got a little folder. This particular folder has a vinyl crackle sound that I like. So I'm going to drag that in. Now I have Ableton set up to automatically warp clips, so I'm going to shut that off. And that gives me a little bit more of the actual sample to work with. And then in this case, I'll just basically duplicate it a bunch of instances until I have several minutes of it, and that should cover it. I mean, the lo-fi hip-hop songs are not usually 5 minutes long, so if I come here to around the 5-minute mark, then I know I've got plenty. When I listen back, usually I have to EQ these things. Okay, so this particular sample, it has a little a moment here where it's really loud and has this kind of cutoff thing. What I'm going to do is basically cut that little piece off. I might actually end up using it later because it's kind of cool to use as an effect, which I'll show you later. But at the moment, I just kind of want to chop that off right there where that happens. And then this piece right here, the remaining piece, is what I will use as a background crackle. Now I'm just hitting Command D a whole bunch of times to do this. Obviously there's quicker and better ways. Alright, so when we listen back now, we have just straight crackle without that that volume sweep. Okay, so what I want to usually do also is I don't usually keep this at the 0 volume, so we'll bring it down a little bit, as well as use some EQ on there. So I'm going to drop an EQ on. Okay, so this EQ here, generally I just like to take out the low end. Believe it or not, there is a little bit of like low-end rumble and stuff on these vinyl samples usually. By the way, you can find these online all over the place. They have entire sample packs of just vinyl. So usually I'm gonna edit out this low-end stuff. And usually take a little bit of the highs out as well. Just basically kind of just mess around until I find something that I feel I'm comfortable with. I just like to have it to where there's not a lot of there's no low end, and then there's not a lot of like mid lows. I also kind of sweep off some of the highs here because I like to roll them off because, you know, later on I'm going to have hi-hats and different things happening in the song, and I don't want, you know, I want to make sure that this space here is all cleared up for the brighter things in the song. I'm just going to kind of play with this for a second until I find how I like it. Okay, so I've got my EQ here set how I want it. I just kind of brought the dBs down to 19, you know, just fitting this in exactly how I want it into these 8 bars. So that's that. Okay, so I like to usually use some sort of sample. I like to flip samples, but I also like to make my own sounds. For that, I use keyboards, I use synths, I use Machina, I use my electric bass guitar, my electric guitar. So what I do is usually a combination of both of those schools of thought. Not just sample flipping, but also not making the whole beat using all my own sounds. What helps me though sometimes as a starting point is to find a sample that I like and to just kind of draw some ideas from that. In this case, I already picked some things out ahead of time. The one that I think I'm gonna go with is this. In Ableton, when you click on something in the browser, obviously, for those of you that know, it previews it. For those of you that don't know, yeah, this whole little browser area right here is just amazing and super convenient. So I'm going to bring in this sample here. And as you can see, it is not warped. However, if we're going to be using it in the song and flipping it, I am going to have to warp it. So yeah, I mean, basically, let's kind of listen. I mean, I kind of like this 97 tempo. Lately, for some reason, I've just been doing a lot of music in this tempo. I'm gonna kind of stick to that real quick and see what kind of vibes I can lay down. So I guess this section is gonna be a little bit of a warping tutorial as well. I mean, this is very simple sample to warp, so we're not going to get super in depth with it, but I will show you a few key things about the warp feature. Hopefully you can learn something as you watch. For those of you that do already know how to warp and already know how to use Ableton, this is going to be a little bit redundant, so you can just skip it if you want. Okay, so we're going to warp this sample here. The first step in the process of warping, for those of you that don't know, we need to set the 1. Basically, I'm going to go here to the very beginning of the clip and zoom into the audio. You can see that there's a mark here where Ableton wants to put the 1. Generally, I like to go in a little closer. Some people put the marker here where they see the audio starting. I like to put it somewhere in between where I can see the audio starting and where Ableton wants to put its 1. So somewhere around here is probably where I'd put it, right when you can see the waveform starting to really get larger. So I'm going to double click there, and then I'm going to right click on this marker and go here to set 1 here. Okay, so now that is now telling Ableton that this point is the beginning of the audio clip, and you can see that the 1 actually starts counting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. Now basically just gonna kind of play it and listen to the click track and listen to the sample and see where I need to move things. For this, I'm gonna keep it real simple and make every hit happen on the 1 of each bar. So as you can see, Ableton gives you these little light gray little markers here where it's reading where it believes the 1 is. So usually I just roll with that. If you want to, you can get in real close. You can choose your own. You know, I could go here if I want that to be the beginning. However, I'm just gonna go ahead and go with their suggested warp point. As you can see, this is fairly long. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes to do this process. It's really easy, it's just like a little bit time consuming. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip all of this so that you guys don't have to sit here and watch me do this, and we'll move on to the next part. Alright, so I finished warping this piece. So this is on time, everything's cool, it's just too spread apart. I don't want to chop up a sample and do anything with something that's takes a full 4 beats just for it to hit to the next note. So, handy little trick Ableton's made. See these 2 little buttons down here? You got divided by 2 and times 2. So we can either take this arrangement here and divide it by 2, or we can take it and multiply it by 2. Now, I'd rather divide it, because if we divide it, we're cutting it into smaller pieces. So as you can see, now it's playing at double the speed that it used to, which is perfect for what I'm trying to do here. Last thing here is, because this is audio and not a rhythm component, usually when I'm warping audio, just straight audio, I will put it into Complex Pro. Complex Pro will basically keep it in the same quality that it was in before we warped it. So yeah, when I'm dealing with just straight up audio, melodic things usually, then I keep it in Complex Pro. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. Next up, we'll create a drum beat so we can chop this sample up over it. So we've got the sample here. Very simple. What we want to do now, or what I want to do, is to create a basic drum pattern. Okay, so the point of making this drum loop is to have a rhythm over which I can flip this sample. The drum loop doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, I'm going to make something very simple. So first step is to open a MIDI track, which I already have right here, but I'll go ahead and do that for people who might just be starting out with this program. I'll hold down Shift, Command, and T, and that opens a new MIDI track for me. I'm going to hit Command R, and now I can rename this. I'm going to call it drums for now. Then I go over here to Instruments, and I select a drum rack. I'm going to drag the drum rack down onto that track, and here I have an empty drum rack. Now I have to fill up these empty cells here, or drum pads, with the drum sample that I want. In this case, for this tutorial, I already have some samples laid out. I pulled them from a folder that I have called Favorites, and I'm more than likely going to use this kick. Yeah, this one here. So we'll put that there, and then I've got a snare, and I'll put the snare here. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to keep this drum loop, for now, a simple kick snare pattern. Okay, so, and by the way, I have this drum rack MIDI mapped. I'm using my typing keyboard actually at the moment. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you use a drum rack, it's full of a bunch of these individual little samplers. So each sound, when you click on it, it'll immediately go to that particular sampler that the sample is on. So the kick sound is going to pull up the sampler that the kick is on. That means that each sound is going to have its own parameters that need to be adjusted because of that sampler that it's assigned to. So for instance, this kick, what I want to do is turn this velocity down. Obviously when you're making something more intricate and more complex, You might want a little bit of velocity, because velocity actually adds character to the beat and gives it a more realistic feel, because when a drummer is actually playing drums, he's not hitting the drums at the exact same velocity every single time he hits it. He's hitting them at varying velocities, softer and harder, etc. Oftentimes I do like my kick drum sample to hit at the same velocity every time it hits. That's just me, but in this case I'm just going to set it like that. I'm also going to put the volume, it's default at -12, I'm going to put it up to 0. And there, same thing. I'm going to turn the velocity all the way down, and I'm going to put the volume up to 0 for now. Just kind of hear what that sounds like. I actually feel like the snare at 0 volume is going to be a little too hot, so I'm just going to back it off a little bit. And bear in mind, eventually later on, I am going to probably go into these individual samplers within the drum rack and make adjustments to them. Maybe change the pitch around, maybe change the sustain, decay, release settings. For now though, I'm just going to create this pattern. So I know that I'm going to start off with just a 4-bar pattern. So I'm going to highlight 4 bars. Again, you can see all the counting up here. All these numbers, these are signifying the bars. So I'm going to select bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4. And then I'm going to hit Shift, Command, and M. And that creates a new MIDI clip for us. Okay, once that MIDI clip is created, we can double click on it and we can see the piano roll down here. Piano rolls where if we want to, we can write in our notes by double clicking them. Or you can hit the B key on your keyboard. And the B key pulls up your pencil tool. The pencil tool, you can just click once and change it around. You can also use this to change the velocity if you want to draw in the velocities of these things. So it's just a quick little tool for beat making, for accuracy and whatnot. However, at the moment I'm not going to use it because I'm actually going to just play in a simple little beat using the keyboard. We will come down here. I will get off the pencil tool by hitting B. I will hit Command A to select all and then just hit delete. Now all of those are gone. Since I'm just going to work on this little 4-measure pattern, I'm going to loop it. So as it's selected right now, yellow highlighted, as you can see, I'm going to hit Command L, and that puts this loop bracket here right above it. Loop on and off button is right here. So I will turn that on so that it loops for me. Over here I have this set up to, you click this tiny little arrow next to the metronome and you can adjust your count in. So I have it set to a 1-bar count in, which means it's going to click for 4 beats and then it'll start recording. So let's just try out a little pattern right here. Bear in mind, if you mess up, you can go back in right here to the piano roll and move things around and change things all you want. I'll probably end up having to do that. Alright, so let's lay this down. Alright, as you can see, the cursor as it moves along is recording over the notes that I just played. That's fine. They're actually still there. This is just one of the functions of recording in MIDI. You can set it to where it'll loop over and over and those notes will stay there and you can add notes to what's already there. But in the particular way that it's set up right now, it's actually just recording virtually, here I'll show you actually. If I drag this over here, all those notes are still here, they're just underneath over here. And there's our loop. Okay, Okay, so then what I usually do after that, I just kind of go in here and take a look, see if there's anything I want to manually move over. I can move notes around in the piano roll here. If I see something that, it looks like all of these beats that I played are all, if you notice, they're all like a little bit ahead of the beat. Some of them are behind, and a lot of them are ahead. So I kind of like to experiment with things like that by looking at what the majority of them are doing and seeing that the majority of them are ahead, and then finding the little outliers of the group, the ones that are not ahead, and then moving them ahead and seeing how that feels. So like these guys, this one here, these two are both sitting behind where they should be. So I want to kind of move them, scoot them forward a little bit ahead of where they should be actually, and see how that sounds. Now to do that, all I have to do is select these guys, and then I click on them with the mouse. I hold the mouse clicked down, and then I also hit the command button and hold that down, and that will temporarily bypass the grid, so I can scoot it without any regard to the grid and where the grid is. So I'm going to scoot this just a hair before the beat. This one too. This little one right here. Let's see here, this one here. Now it's very important that when you're doing this maneuver, while you're scooting notes around, regardless of the grid, you're sliding it over the grid, you have to do it in the right combination. So first you click the note with your mouse and hold down, and then after that you hold down the command key and slide. If you do it backwards and you hit the command key and then click, what happens is this. As you can see, the velocity, it changes the velocity, which is not what we're trying to do. If you click the note with the mouse and then you move it without holding down the command key, then it's going to lock to the grid lines. Now you can slide it a little bit around, but more or less it's gonna nudge to the grid. Okay, so let's just give this a quick listen. I think these two notes that I moved over at the end are a little too soon. So I'm going to move them back in the direction that they were in, to the right. Okay, so that's cool. I like that. So one other cool little technique that I like to use here in Ableton is quantization. I'm sure you all know what that is, but there's a feature in here that I like to use in particular. I'll show you real quick. We click down here in the piano roll, we hit Command A to select all of our notes. We right click on the piano roll to get our menu here. We go to Quantize Settings, and in here you adjust what you want it to quantize to. We're going to have our grid be 16th notes, and then here is the cool part. So 100% is going to make sure all these notes snap directly onto the grid, and if you bring it down to 0%, it's not going to do anything. So we want somewhere in the middle. If I put it around 35, maybe let's do 40%, then it'll actually take all these notes and it'll move them towards the grid position of a 16th note quantization, but it won't put them exactly on the grid. So when I do this, if you look down here at these notes, when I hit OK, you can actually see them move, although it'll be just a tiny little minuscule amount because they're not actually snapping to the grid completely. So Check it out. So you probably saw that little tiny shift in some of these. Let's go ahead and listen back and see what it sounds like. Perfect. Sounds cool. Alright, so next up on the menu, we're going to add a hi-hat and probably a tambourine too as well. So I've got some over here. So again, just like when we were making the kick snare, first step is going to be to add a MIDI track. So Shift Command T. There's a MIDI track, and we're going to make the MIDI clip the same length as this one here. So we're going to highlight and hit Shift Command M, and there's our MIDI clip. Again, just like when we did the kick snare, I'm going to bring in the same thing over here. We're going to bring in a instrument drum rack. Okay, so we're going to pick out our sample. I've got several over here already lined up for this project. There's 3 hats. Now, you know, I like to pick a closed hat and an open hat usually to alternate back and forth between them during the hi-hat pattern. When listening to this open hat has a sort of a metallic kind of characteristic to it. And so does this closed hat. So you can kind of hear that like clinking metal sound. Whereas this, it's kind of lacking that. It almost sounds like something that somebody would do with their mouth. Psst, psst, something like that. So I'd probably go with these two right here and alternate between the two of them. The tambourine is also a good little addition. It adds like a whole other level of like shimmer and sparkle. You could do like a standard, like a nice like little hat pattern, and then have this tambourine going over in the background in a constant, you know, 8 notes or 16 notes interspersed in there. That's all the stuff that I like to do. So let's just kind of load these samples. Let's do these 3, 4, 8, and tambourine. We'll load them all up into our sampler here. I'm actually gonna shift these. Okay, so see if I can find them on this keyboard. It's part of using the keyboard as a MIDI controller, or it's always a little funky finding your notes. I'll kind of see what these things sound like together. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a good combination of sounds. I'm happy with that. Let's see if we can mess around and get a pattern going. So just like that. That's what I'm going to lay down. So I'm just going to hit Command Z to undo that last little bit of recording that it did. And here we have this pattern. So you can see the notes here. This one's ahead, this one's behind a little bit, this one's like way behind. So they're kind of inconsistent. So what I'm going to do is, I like the inconsistency, I like the fact that it's loose, but I do want to tighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to do that trick that I was talking about before. We're going to hit Command A so that we can select all, go here to quantize, settings, and we'll drop it down even less. We'll have the quantization amount at 35%. And then here, let's do, leave it at 16. We'll hit OK. Okay. I'm actually going to add a little bit more to that even. I'm going to drop this down though to like 20%. Nah, even less, 15%. Alright. You can see some of those ones that were just really off just scooted just a little bit more on. So. I'm thinking of just throwing some of those open ones in there, like how you're hearing. I don't know. Something like that. Something a little off, a little deviation from the norm, you know. Alright, so I'm thinking of like doing little like open hits on the one, and yeah, like after the first and the fourth one, maybe. Let's see. Let me just do a little like practice run real quick. Alright, so thank God for practice runs. Alright, I'm just going to try and lay something down over this and see how it goes. Now the thing is, remember when we were recording the MIDI, anytime we've done one of these live MIDI recordings, every time it comes around to the end and then loops back to the beginning again, what happens? It records over it, right? So if we were to try to add this little... add that in there on top, it's gonna just record over it. Watch, I'll show you. See what I mean? Completely useless. So we have to just go in here and change a little setting real quick. With this little plus sign, the great thing about Ableton, by the way, is it shows you when you hover over something what this button does. Over here in the left hand corner, you can see this little information box. So when I hover over this plus sign, it says MIDI arrangement overdub. When enabled, existing notes in MIDI clips in the arrangement will be mixed with rather than replaced by newly recorded notes. So that's basically just a long way of saying that I can actually add these hits in there without recording over it. So we'll hit that plus button, turn that on, and we'll just give it a go and see what's up. Alright, so that's cool. Probably could have nailed it a little better than that, but that's cool. That's alright. I can go in there and kind of fix it up. Let me just try and do a quick little fixing real quick and see if I can square this away. I'm going to use the technique that I was talking about earlier where I click on the thing and then hold the command button down and get like a nice fine shifting that's not on the grid. Alright, cool. Happy with that. Last but not least, I'm gonna add this little tambourine as well. I'm gonna keep it really simple with this thing, and just basically, I don't know, probably do maybe eighth notes with this. Let's see here. I'm just gonna go with how I feel. I think just like this is gonna be fine. It's a little funky on a normal keyboard, you know, typing keyboard, but well. Alright, we'll go in here, make sure this first note is on. I don't need this one. And let's select all these. And we'll do our little quantize trick, quantize settings. And we'll do like somewhere around 50%. Well, a little less, 45%. Alright, cool. That's adding the tambourine. Okay, so now I've got this drum pattern here going, and we've got the kicks and snare on this one, and the hats open and closed, plus the tambourine on this one. One thing that I like to do, even though I built it this way, for mixing purposes, it helps out to have all of these different drum sounds separate. So what I'll do is I will take our kick and drum track here, and I'll duplicate that. So now I have two of the same, but I'll go into one of them, and we've got kick and snare. So what I'll do is I'll either solo the kick, or I will mute the snare. Either way, it's effectively the same thing. I'm just deciding that one of these tracks is going to be dedicated only to the kick. So I will rename this Command R and type in kick, and then I will solo the kick, and then here on this one I will rename Command R, and I will call it snare, and I will mute the kick, or I could solo the snare. Either way. In this case, we will also duplicate. I will call this one the tams, and we will solo the tams, and then on this one we will actually keep the closed and open hi-hats together. So I'll just mute the tams so that the closed and open hi-hats play together on the same track. That's fine. Now that these are all separate, I can adjust them as such. Separate adjustments for separate sounds on separate tracks. So this kick, it's really important for you to be sure and tune your drums. It's hard to know exactly what I need to tune these things to this early on in the game. I can get a general idea though by listening to this sample that we have here and finding out exactly what key this is in. Because as long as I keep this sample in the same key and don't change key on it, then that should be okay to tune our snare to, or our kick to, I should say. So I can pull a spectrum analyzer onto this track and listen to it while getting a close-up view. You can see that there is a constant here. See where my mouse is? There's always a constant. Where I hover my mouse, that sub note, that low note, that's always staying in an E. So I know for sure that E is going to be a constant. Come up here to this other one that's always here. That's a B. So we got an E and a B for sure always there. So while that E and the B are always there, I do hear a more prevalent note. And just switching off between whatever that is, whatever that note is, and then one semitone below it. Maybe like a G and a F sharp or something. You can hear it here. So I kind of want that tone, whatever that tone is. I can figure that out real quick by pulling in some sort of instrument and just playing on the keyboard and seeing what note it is. A quick way to do that would be to open a MIDI track, pull in an instrument, and use something like a analog or operator. The analog, we could just go here to do a sine wave. We only need one oscillator. And then you listen to it, and then you play along and see if you can find the note. As you can see, those are the two notes that I was really hearing. And now with this, since it's just a sine wave, it's really easy to see what the notes are. So I pull a spectrum on this, double click to get it large. As you can see, there's a B and an F sharp, okay? F sharp might be a good spot for this kick, actually. Kick, pull a spectrum onto the kick. I mean, I like that. I think that's a good spot for that. I do need to make another couple of little other adjustments to this kick. I'm going to mess with the ADSR a little bit. Probably turn the decay up a little bit. Sustain can definitely come down a little bit. The release time does not need to be at 60 seconds. It sounds nice and short. We'll make it more punchy. I definitely need a little EQ on it though. Pull on an EQ8 and let's just roll off all of the stuff right around 30, 35, and then we can also let's do like a hard low pass, and let's not do this hard one. Let's do a softer low pass. We'll bring that in somewhere around here. And take this second one somewhere around here, but let's do a hard Q and bring it down. Not that hard. Open that up a little bit. Now, a big thing for me, I do own a UAD Apollo. UAD just makes some really badass effects, and one of the ones that I just kind of can't get enough of is the 1176. So you can achieve this with pretty much any. You could just use the compressor. Personally, I'm going to use this 1176. 1176 LN Legacy. So yeah, unfortunately, I know this part probably isn't very helpful for a lot of you out there if you don't have a UAD plugin, but you can use any kind of compressor. Even Ableton's glue compressor is good. Essentially, I'm just gonna get some beef out of this kick. The kick itself doesn't sound too powerful at the moment, but believe me, once we get this guy on here, it's gonna definitely change things. I'm also going to make some adjustments to the snare here. I think I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Got some more even balance between these two. It's a little better here. Alright, so these tabs, let's get a little EQ on these suckers. And we'll bring them down too for sure. Pan them off. Do like a cut on this. Let's roll this off a little bit too. Maybe a little reverb might be good on here too. Alright, we'll go here to the reverbs. Let's go to rooms. Oh, room's already open, so let's go to bright room. Let's try that. And we'll put it here directly after. Hi, that's good. Shape. I like to pre-delay a little less than that. Let's go the other side with this. And these hats. Let's do the same thing. Let's put that bright room on there. And let's see, we'll keep it on high. Spin. Turn the pre-delay down again. Size. 770s, 800, something like that. Let's kill this though. don't know, 1.4, something like that. Diffuse. Go way down with this. Not so bad, not so bad. Alright, let's do some EQ on it though too. Probably do very similar EQ as we did to the tambourine, honestly. Kind of thing, kind of getting some of that middle stuff out. Roll off again. It is lo-fi, so we don't want it to be too bright, and the point is to go kind of dark here actually on a lot of stuff, so definitely bring these down, speed up. Now, once we throw the secret ingredient on here, no, but in all seriousness, we can definitely put some swing on this. Let me show you. So, as of right now, a little boring, right? But, we got these excellent swings here. And let's see what this does. Okay, so this kick, I'm gonna put Logic 8. Snare, same thing, I'm gonna put Logic 8. And these hats and tams, we'll put 55. And now let's see what's up. Nice. So as you can see here, we've got everything complete. We've got the kick, the snare, the tams, the hats. Everything is kind of got more leveled out. We've got some reverbs on things, panning, EQ. We have the swing on there now. Logic 8 sub up 55 on the tambourine and on the hat. And then Logic 8 sub up 70 on the kick and snare. And we've got the returns going to this reverb. Now I have a UAD reverb that I like to use on drums that I have set, so I'm just gonna put that in there. Myself, clean studio preset that I kind of tweaked a little bit to my liking. Just adds a little bit of room sound to it. So next up, this sample right here that we've got going on, kind of like a Rhodes keyboard sound. I'm just gonna chop it up a little bit so that it fits better with the beat. Alright, so we're going to chop up this sample using a drum machine. So we'll find drum rack right here, and then we'll make a new MIDI track. Shift Command T, drop drum rack onto that. And then what I want to do is take this sample, I'm going to hit Command J. That will consolidate it. So that way when I drag it into the drum rack, it's all in time. Okay, so we'll drop this into C2, and I like to keep it on the whole notes instead of going to the sharps, because then it's just easier for me to play the chops because I only have to use white keys. So here we can do C and D, and then do E, F, and G. These we're going to change up the start points on the sample. When we play a sample, wherever we put a start point, so yeah, basically I'm gonna find a start point and then also edit the sampler. We've got to change some of the settings in here because right now it's set to where when you press it once, that is just gonna keep playing because the release time right here is set to 60 seconds, which means it's just gonna keep playing for 60 seconds. So let's just go through let's go through how I'm going to change that. So we'll start with this first sample right here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and change the velocity, set that to 0, because I want all these samples to play at the same volume. And then we'll adjust the volume a little bit. It's set automatically to about 12 dB, negative 12 dB, so we'll double that, somewhere around 6. Going here to classic, and then set the release. You don't need to set it all the way to 0, but you know, somewhere low enough. These are all usually okay for what we're doing. Voices, it just depends. I might leave this on 3. If you want them to overlap, if you want to be able to play multiple samples at the same time, then you would set it to more than 1. If you want just one sample to play at a time, then you set it to 1 voice. Okay, and then oftentimes what I'll do as well is kind of roll off the attack a little bit. This also gives it kind of helps to give it that sidechain feel, so when you play the sample it doesn't have like a sharp attack. You notice when I give it a little bit of release and roll off the attack, that like clickiness of the sample disappears. So watch, so when I have attack is 0 and release as low as it can go, which is 1 millisecond, you can kind of hear that clicky sound. And by rolling this off a little bit and adding a little bit of release to it, get rid of that. Okay, and the next one, I'm just going to find a different starting point for it. Same thing, you hear that little click sound, so let's turn the velocity all the way down, turn the volume up a little bit. The last one was at 6.86, so we'll keep that going as our volume for now. So let's go. Put this on 1, and let's adjust the attack, decay, and release. Just kind of moving on to the next one. I'll go in and fine tune them a little more here in a second after I find the starting point that I want for them. So 35. Bring the release down. tweak this one. Kind of liking some stuff in there. I might not even keep messing with these. I might just sit here and try and figure out just a little chop off of that even. So alright, yeah, I'm gonna lay that down real quick just so I have it. Command Z to get rid of this little first part. Put it back. Cool, kind of like that. That should be enough to work with for right now. I can always elaborate on that and do whatever I want later. So, also what I'm going to do is I have everything over here at the beginning of the session, all the way farthest to the left. What I'm going to do is actually bring all this over, way over to the right. So, Command X, and as you can see, I've got a little working thing over here. I've been working on stuff and just kind of throwing it over here to the side. And I like to do this because I can build everything off over to the side, and then once I have a steady loop going, then I can just copy and paste and bring it all over to the left. Sort of like how I have been doing. So for now, we'll just keep on building over here off to the far right. This is kind of something I do all the time in all my sessions. I'll just build loops off over to the right and then bring them over to the left for arrangement purposes. I know people do all kinds of different stuff. I don't hardly ever use this view. I like to create everything in this view. Another thing I was planning on doing was using this part of this crackle to make like an interesting little build-up type of thing. Not necessarily a build-up, but just something that happens every, I don't know, 2 bars. So listening back to this, this piece right here. This piece is what I want, so I'm going to make a new track and then put that here, 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 here. Literally every 2 bars. Okay, and with this I'm going to I'm just going to keep this EQ that we have here. I'm going to copy and paste it over, but I'm also going to get a auto filter. Basically, the idea is to automate some sort of something like that. So I'm just gonna actually record and let it play through while I mess around with that. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of listen through and pick the ones that I like. Kind of like this one. Like this one. No. No. Yes. So I kind of like this one. And this one. So let's just grab this. And then this one. Also, I'm going to put a limiter on it. Let's see, bring the ceiling down to like really hard, like 20, and then pump the gain up a little bit. Something like that. And I can mess with that later. We'll move on. Okay, so I paused it to go use the restroom real quick, and when I came back, I kind of started messing with this some more. This little... And I decided to keep the resonance of the filter turned way down, so it's not so in your face. And I brought a little more of the lows out of it as well. There's one more thing that I noticed with the original sample that we're using. If we listen back to that, let's see. This little tone that starts here. That could potentially be like a really cool little, like, I don't know, like a thin kind of pad sound if we do it right. So let me just bring that over here and see if we can mess with it a little bit. How about we bring a chorus? No. Wait, yeah. If we modulate this, do like a little sounds pretty cool. Let me see here. I'm digging that. Okay, we'll call this thin pad. Okay, so then I was kind of messing around with the piano here and found some chords that I thought fit kind of nicely. It's like so I'm just gonna lay those down like that. Also, I'm going to go in and kind of edit them, so I've got this F that kind of plays out through the whole thing, so I'm going to keep that going. Play some kind of like little melody over it. Anyway, we're gonna just record something. sounds, some road sounds. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with the process. As you can see, it's already taken all this time just to get all these layers going. So I'm going to go ahead and edit all that out and then come back with the finished product, because this is probably going to take me like an hour. And we're back, and here is the final sound. So this is coming together nicely. Really am liking this so far. Now oftentimes what I do for bass is I make my own. I have a bass guitar here. I like to plug that in and come up with my own bass line. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing here in this case. So we're going to record a bass. I have a track that I just brought in here. We're going to rename it bass. You can set this to in or to auto when you're recording a live instrument. You also have to go into this external input menu here on the track and select which input. I'm going to be going into input 1, which is a mono input. There's the stereo. I'm going to select the mono one. Put it back to auto. I'll be monitoring it through Ableton. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to disable the microphone real quick, and let's get this bass line. By the way, I have been rehearsing this for the last like 10 minutes or so before I started recording, so I don't want to put you guys through all that, just sitting there listening to me trying to rehearse something to play. So hopefully this works out. Going into preferences and changing the input will deactivate the microphone. So that was enough. I'm gonna hit Command Z to get rid of this little thing at the beginning that happened from the loop. Let's listen back. Cool, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go through this real quick. I'm going to find all the little parts that I like and all the parts that I don't like, and I'm going to copy and paste and edit together a bass line that I find to be perfect. Hope that makes sense. I don't really want to do this and make you sit here while I do this, because I think you all understand how that would work. Basically, I would just, you know, say, okay, I really like that, and so I'll use that. Don't like that, so I won't use that. That's cool, so like this, for instance, like this is more powerful than this, so I would probably use that. And then go in there and show the fades and make sure that these things have decent little crossfades and stuff like that. So not gonna bore you with that. Definitely going to do that real quick while this is on pause and make you not sit through that. So I will be right back with this edited. Okay, and we're back. So here is that bass line that I was talking about. I edited it together. This one right here called high bass. Okay, so I edited all the little parts that I thought were perfect, and I just made a nice, perfect little loop of the bass line. So let's listen. Okay, and then after that, I thought, it didn't have enough low end, so I went and recorded another bass line. This one is just really, really simple. It's basically just a couple of notes. I'll play that for you real quick. Okay, so that one is just a couple of low notes playing underneath this other one. I'll play the two together. If you see, as you can see, I called this one high bass and this one low bass. High bass is that I have a high pass filter on it right here. This EQ8 is set to roll off everything below 116, and the low bass has a funky kind of low pass filter thing going on. I've rolled off everything below 663, but then I put another dip down around 347, and I really pumped it up even more around the 41 hertz. So both of them have a limiter on it. This one's got a -9 dB, and I put the gain up about 1.6, and then this one has more of a crushing going on, so I put the ceiling at about -6, and the gain up to about 6. The low end one is the one that I'm really using a side chain on. I want the kick to really duck that one out. This high one, there is some side chain on it, but it's not going to be quite as extreme. Usually I wouldn't have it as extreme on this song in particular, though I do really want that side chained pumping kind of effect. Both of them I did use guitar rig on. Really simple. I just went to bass amps and selected a preset more or less. Messed with the EQ a little bit and called it a day. So not a whole lot there that you missed out on. I just didn't feel like it was necessary to show all that because it was all pretty simple and also very subjective, like the things that I did and the way that I set up guitar rig and shit. It was all based on what I like. Now the technique though is the more important part, and that's what we just went over. The fact that I used the high bass and the low bass. You can make a separate bass line for the low if you want, or oftentimes what I'll do is I'll record one bass line and then I'll just duplicate that track so that I have two of the same, and then I'll make one high bass, I'll high pass it, and then the other one I will call low bass, and instead I will low pass that one, and then put the side chain on the low one because that's one the kick is going to interfere with. So that's the other way that I usually do it. I also do that with electronic music all the time too. Have a dedicated low bass and a dedicated high bass. I just feel like it works out the best. But when I'm using a real bass guitar, I like to write two separate bass lines often. So this track is really coming together nicely. I'm not sure what else I'm going to add. I definitely feel like I want to put some kind of vocal stuff over it. Maybe some samples from some old hip-hop tracks. Maybe some more keys. I'm not sure. I'm going to stop for now. As you can see, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'll continue on this at another time. So I thought I was done for the night, but then I found this cool little sound and started playing around with it and kind of came up with a cool keyboard line right here. Just this little like basic keys sound from over here. It's pretty sweet. So this little progression, basically, I don't know, it just kind of goes something like just these kinds of chords, just some jazzy stuff. So anyway, yeah, this is the pattern that I came up with, and then just kind of went in here to the MIDI notes, and any little mistakes I made just kind of messed around and put them where I wanted them real quick, what made a sense to me. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I had to record it real quick. Whenever I get a cool little idea like that, I just try and throw it down real fast. This one ended up being kind of magical, so I'm pretty stoked on it. Just finished adding this keyboard melody, kind of came up with it off the fly, recorded it in. As far as songwriting, production-wise, the last thing I want to do is I want to add in some vocal samples taken from some old hip-hop. Particularly, I have some really crazy, like, old songs from an artist named Skinny Pimp. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of him. Pretty fucking awesome. I mean, his old stuff, it's floating around on YouTube. People who actually own the physical copy uploaded them to YouTube. So I've found a couple of those that I want to take from, and we'll drag those in real quick and we'll give them a listen. So I actually have the vocal pieces that I want to use right here in the folder for the purpose of this tutorial. I got most of the stuff ready, so.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Scope my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lead in the head to niggas I got Anna with you scatter. No matter how fast you can raise the bus, I will blow through the back of your face. Lunatic, second shit. First I signed the contract. Something like a crazy check to place you in the Kroger back. Bloody, suddenly I scratch them off my hit list. I just wanna cap a nigga just to make my breath bigger. Dangerously, anxiously. I ain't no motherfucking T. Fuck Merry Christmas, all I wanna do is trick or treat. You ain't cool, damn fool, prone to your fucking dome. You're listening to the Hurt Feeling Child Capone.
Hurt Feeling, that's where I'm coming, trick. Don't be shooting across, I light your ass with a match, bitch. Don't be talking that shit, the hood is the war zone. Niggas run up, my gauge is still pop the cone. Knife in the throat, so choke off your blood, ho. Stop be kicking the shit out your ass with the steel, ho. Suckers, they step you broke. I hope you got big nuts, ain't a damn.
I mean, this shit's just fucking grimy. I love it.
Breaking your fucking jaw, popping a fist in your grill, bitch. Fingers on the trigger, boom, drop his ass in a ditch. So get close, nigga, my Glock will be rock.
And if somebody had given me that tape back then when they put it out, I would have been fucking losing my mind. Alright, so I think this track here, to audio, yeah, it looks like it's empty, nothing on it. So we can just use this for the vocal for now. Let's pull that in.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Scope my man, then I toss the dynamite. Just gotta no matter how fast you can raise the bus, I will blow through the.
Okay, so obviously we're gonna have to warp that and probably do a million other things to it too to make it fit. Then we have another one here, just like a little piece that I found from something.
I be like crap, but I'm frontin' up under they funk. I be like crap, but I'm frontin' up under they funky ass. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with under the ski match. Just like my big for the red damn fool, we gankin' all. Yes, they know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with under the ski match. Just like my big for the red damn.
That part right there, I love it.
Yes, they know me as Derek, but niggas don't know. Yes, they know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with under the ski match. Just like my big for the red damn fool, we gankin' all.
So yeah, if you guys like that shit, I encourage you to go check that out. Go try and find some of it. That old shit's the best though. I found some of his stuff on Apple Music, and I guess it's newer. It's just not quite the same for me anyway. So let's get to work on these vocals and see what we can do with them. So when we're warping stuff, first thing we want to do is find the beginning of that thing. Where's the 1? And then we're going to set that 1 and warp from there. So in this case,
silent night, there's no light, that's when silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead in the head to niggas I got Anna with you scattered. No matter how fast you get ready to bust, I will blow through the back.
Alright, I'm going to put a line there, Command E, and separate this from everything else, because that to me sounds like the prime real estate. That's what I want to pick from. So the song itself sounds like it actually starts right here.
Silent night, there's no light, that's when silent night, there's no light.
So I'm going to come in here, and right where I see this waveform, Ableton is suggesting the ones right here. I'm going to come a little bit further to the left of that. Not quite to where this waveform just begins. A lot of people do that. I like to come somewhere in between, so like where they suggest and where the waveform begins, somewhere right here in the middle. So I'll probably pick like here. Now I'm going to right click on that and hit set 1 1 from here, and now that tells the computer, it tells Ableton that the 1 is that point. That's the 1. So let's listen back with the metronome on.
Silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander.
Okay, so obviously it's still way off. So I'm gonna come in here and we're just gonna go to town on this fucking thing.
Silent night, silent night, silent night, there's no light, silent night, there's no light, that's when I silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit. Silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping. Silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping. Silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like.
So it's creeping.
Silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead. Silent night, there shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead in the head to niggas. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead in the head to niggas. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead in the head to niggas like an Anna with your bullet lead in the head to niggas like an Anna with your scatter. No matter how fast you get. Bullet lead in the head to niggas like an Anna with your scatter. No matter how fast you get ready to.
Well, we're probably not going to go that far anyway, so let's concentrate more over here still.
Silent night, silent night, silent, silent.
So I just want to point out real quickly that I am not exactly grabbing these yellow warp markers and putting them on the grid every time. What I'm doing is really paying attention to these transients, the audio waveforms down there, and making sure that the beginnings, for the most part, the beginnings of those are in line with the grid. Sometimes you have to grab the warp marker and make fine movements with it, otherwise it'll snap to the grid. So like I'm doing right there, you click on the warp marker, hold down with the mouse, and at the same time hold the Alt Option key. When you do that, you can slide it around with fine movements, not actually locking to the grid every time.
Silent night, there's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. shouldn't have been a silent night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault. You got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in silent night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault. You hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault. You got caught. Shouldn't man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault. You got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the head to niggas like an Anna with you scatter. No matter how much you can raise the butt. Lit in the head. Lit in the head to niggas. Bullet lit in the head to niggas like an Anna with you scatter. Niggas like an Anna with niggas like an Anna with you scatter. No niggas like an Anna with you scatter. No matter how much you can raise the butt. With you scatter, no. With you scatter, no matter how. No, with you scatter, no matter how. And with you scatter, no matter how. Yeah, and with you scatter, no matter how much you raise the.
Alright, so let's put this over the beat real quick and see.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Silent night, there's no light. Silent night, there's no light. That's light, there's no light.
So something that completely matched up over the metronome, now when I put it over the beat, doesn't sound like it's on time. So that's why I'm putting it over the beat and then adjusting from there as well.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man.
Too fast there.
Creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Been like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Been like a hit man, go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. My fault, you got caught. My fault, you got caught. Fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit. Bystander. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Up in a bystander, bullet lit in the head to niggas like an Anna with you. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lit.
Nice, sounds good enough for now, timing wise. And now for this next part here, let's move it away from the beat to work with it real quick.
I be like crap, but I'm frontin' up under they funky ass. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski mask. Just like ass, they know me, they know. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match. Just like my big brother red, that fool we yanking out.
Alright, so
They know
I want to grab this part.
they know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match.
Okay, so let's separate. First, actually, let me just say this. Sometimes the very beginning of the audio clip that you wish to warp, this part right here, for instance, isn't actually the beginning beat, or the one, if you will. In fact, this first word,
They know
they, it's actually going to be the end of the measure that comes right before the one that we're working on, where this verse is going to be. The second word,
know me,
which is the word no, that's actually going to be the first beat of our measure. Subsequently, that's where we're going to set our one. So I'm going to set my beginning spot. So Ableton has here. I'm going to go a little to the left of it. So I'm going to right click on that, set 1 here. Right click on that again and warp from here straight. Now with the click track on,
is Derek, is Derek. Know me as Derek, but niggas know me as Derek, but niggas don't know me as Derek, but niggas know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with. Know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match. Just like my
okay, so that's it roughly.
know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match.
So the word they is one of the beats right before the next measure starts. All right, so let's clean it up over here on our actual beat. So remember to put the one where it goes.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match. Just like my big brother.
This is how you drive people crazy that you live with. Just play shit on a loop constantly. Okay, so this thing here, let's move it over here.
Niggas I got Anna with. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match. There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a heat man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lit. And the hits and niggas I got Anna with. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match.
Alright, so we've got several little vocals here to work with, all of them relatively in time, at least in time enough to do what we're wanting to do here. So now we're going to have to kind of use some other techniques to make them stand out. For the fact is, they do have their own music going underneath them. So we're trying to lay some vocals on top of our original music, and this vocals already have their own music. So obviously that's going to clash. Luckily we have these two parts.
You got caught, shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lit. And the hits and niggas I got Anna with. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinning with under the ski match.
Luckily those two parts, they don't have any music, so that should be easy. We just gotta deal with this one here. So the first thing I want to do is use some EQ. So I'm going to put some EQ on here. So I want to use this EQ. I'm going to put on one of these a high pass filter.
There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a heat man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite.
So you're able to get rid of the bass, the bassy part of the bass, but that bass still comes through on the high part.
There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a heat man.
There's also a bunch of like garbage noise up on the high end of things on the spectrum, both from tape hiss and also from probably the YouTube compression since it's also garbage.
Night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite.
So I have something like that for now.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I
Maybe I won't use such hard curves on this.
There's no light.
Softer
That's
one.
when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite.
I'm just gonna kind of come in here and it's a really sharp, just kind of tip.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a
Okay, let's give that a listen real quick.
silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Silent night,
Okay,
silent night.
okay, so I'm actually gonna put another EQ on here real quick. And on this one, I'm gonna try using the mid side mode. For those of you who don't know, there's different modes with the EQ8. Usually it just comes in stereo mode as default. You can also EQ left and right, and here switch to left or right. Or here is MS, which stands for mid side. And so a lot of times with music, I don't know if it's going to be the case with this one, but oftentimes the music is got a lot going on the sides, and the vocals are always panned directly in the middle. You can isolate the vocals oftentimes by going to the side EQ and just getting rid of everything, and then leaving yourself only with the mid left.
There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night. There's no light.
Okay, another thing I want to do here is I'm actually going to pitch these vocals down. It's kind of style with that type of rap music too. I mean, this is where and when they were doing the chopped and screwed type of thing. So let's go down. Let's just try through.
There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Silent night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Silent night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Silent night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Silent night. There's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. Silent night. There's no light.
Okay, that was extremely helpful because when I pitched it down, it brought the low frequencies that might have still been here in this area. It brought them down to below this area, and then with this mid side, I was able to completely chop off whatever low was left there, and then boost up the frequencies where the vocals are now sitting, since they're down lower than they would have been. I'm also going to mess with the warp. I believe it's called a mode, warp mode. There's different styles of warping here. You got complex, pro, complex, repitch, texture. They all have like a different kind of characteristic to them. These ones, beat, tones, texture, they're all kind of a little more grainy. Complex and complex pro are the ones that are going to leave you with a more polished sound, more true to like the original. In this case, I won't mind, so especially since we're doing lo-fi stuff, I won't mind having something a little more dirty and grainy. So let's go to texture.
There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite, smiling night. There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite, smiling night. There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. Smiling night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit.
Okay, we're cool. Alright, so let's check that out.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead. And the hit to niggas I got Anna with. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead. And the hit to niggas I got Anna with.
Alright, now let's move on to this one. Let's see what we're gonna do here. Okay, so from the jump, I'm going to try to make these waveforms more even here, and then I think I'm just gonna try these settings that we have here and see how it goes over here. So we got it on texture mode, pitch 3 semitones down, grain size was like 32.59, and then the flux was 25. So
they know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead. And the hit to niggas I got Anna with. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent.
alright, I'm pretty happy with that for now. I might just add a little bit more processing to it, using Waves plugin that I really like. The CLA plugin from Waves, the vocal one, I just love it. I use it on pretty much everything. When I'm doing vocal samples, when I'm recording my own vocals, when I'm mixing stuff for people. It's just a killer plugin. So let's throw that on there real quick and see what we can get. Alright, so let's go over to the plugins. CLA vocals. And then let's run through some of the presets.
There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man.
Usually this start me up one's pretty decent. I'm not sure why it's called that, but with a few adjustments, you can generally get a pretty cool sound. So let's see here.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander, bullet lead. And the hit to niggas I got Anna with. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a hit man. my man. Then I tossed the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with. They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a heat, man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with. They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a heat, man. Go my man. Then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with. They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man.
Alright, so that's pretty sweet right there. Last but not least, let's put a compressor on there. And we'll sidechain it to the kick.
There's no light, that's when I start creeping like a heat, man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with. They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a heat, man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with.
Alright, right on. Happy with that.
Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a heat, man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, I caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with. They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night, there's no light. That's when I start creeping like a heat, man. Go my man, then I toss the dynamite. My fault, you got caught. Shouldn't have been a bystander. Bullet lit in the hit to niggas. I got ammo with. They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm getting with all of the scheme, man. Silent night,
Alright, so we're good to go. We got everything here. Vocals, drums, keys, bass. We're going to do a couple of little techniques to get it ready for mixing next, and then we'll do some arrangement, and that should be pretty much the end of it. One thing that I'm going to do that I always do is I'm going to basically separate all these tracks into various buses. Now in Ableton, they do have a group tracks feature. So basically, with the group tracks, it kind of creates a bus for you. It's similar. However, I like to actually make a separate audio track and bus my other tracks in through that one. Maybe it's because I came from working in Pro Tools before I switched to Ableton, and it's similar to how you would do it in that. So I'll just get started. I want you to bear in mind one thing. I am going to be using UAD plugins for these particular bus tracks. A lot of you may have them, a lot of you may not have them. For that reason, I'm just going to do it fairly quickly, and I'm going to keep it really simple and probably just stick with presets for now. That way, those of you that don't have it, perhaps you can find presets within Ableton that are similar or might give you the same end result. As I create the buses, I'm also probably going to rearrange the tracks. Just kind of move them up and down and stick them right next to the ones that they will share a bus with. The first bus that I'm going to create is for some of these melody tracks. So naturally, the first one that I'm going to make, I'm just going to call Melody Bus. Command T to open a new audio track, Command R to rename it. I'm going to call it Melody Bus, and now I'm going to decide which things I'm going to put in there. So for me, clearly, I feel like it's pretty obvious. I'm going to put the Rhodes, this Rhodes one in there. Okay, so when we're doing this, the first thing we do is we create that audio track. It has to be an audio track that we're going to use as a bus. Then we name it. Then we switch this over to in. So now it's accepting audio in. I'm turning off the external in because I'm using a microphone right now and I already have a track for the microphone. I don't want the audio from that to come into this track, so that's why I switched it from external in to no input. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I went here where normally this Rhodes is being sent to the master. Instead of sending it to the master, we're going to send it to the melody bus. Make sure the in is selected. And you'll see this is now playing through here first and then out to the master. Okay, this thin pad. This one I'm also going to send to this melody bus. This keyboard part, I also want to put that to the melody bus. So right here where it says master, we're going to change that to melody bus. So if we solo that, we'll hear those three tracks going into there. Now, one of my favorite plugins from UAD to put on these buses like this is the 1176. Now, maybe you have an 1176 from Waves or from some other company, but basically what I'm doing with it, I'm just going to use a preset on this right now. There's one here called Guitar Shine. Basically, this is a limiter, or actually, you can use it as a limiter, as a compressor. Basically, this right here is just kind of squeezing it all together, gluing it all together, and at the same time kind of boosting the sound of it, giving it a little bit more attack than it had before. So we can A-B it real quick. Something that might do a similar thing in Ableton would be, let's see here. I think there's a glue compressor. Yeah, there's a guitar glue compressor. Let's see here. You can achieve the same effect with just Ableton native plugins, so just wanted to show you that. So let's move on. Okay, and I almost forgot. I want to put these keyboards, I'm going to put them down here next to the Rhodes and the thin pad. That way I have the things that are in a bus all next to each other right by that bus. And then right here below us we have the high bass and low bass. So I'm going to actually make a bus for the bass. We'll call this a bass bus. So I made a track, I renamed it. I'm going to take the high bass where it's routed to the master and route it to bass bus. And then the low bass, same thing, where it says master, I'm going to change that to bass bus. And on bass bus here, I'm going to turn it to a in. Remember, I don't want my microphone to come through here, so I'm going to switch that to no input. Has no bearing on what you're doing though right now. I'm also going to use 1176 because it's my favorite thing here. We'll stick to a preset to keep it simple like we did last time. We'll just use a gentle bass compression. This one does, it's kind of similar to what we used on the melody bus. However, both the attack and the release on this compressor are somewhere closer to the middle. And then same with the input and output, which would be similar to your threshold and makeup knobs on another compressor. So basically we're just doing exactly what it is called, gentle bass compression. So we're just gently compressing it, we're squeezing it together. You get a little bit more attack out of it, a little bit more punch, Also a little bit more sustain. You can definitely hear the low end come out of this bass line once we turn that on. Okay, so next up we are going to do the same thing, but this time with the drums. However, I kind of want to do everything except for the kick here. So the snare, the hats, the tams. Let's make a track. Command T, Command R, and this one I'll call top line bus, because it's going to be everything but the kick drums, so it's kind of just the top end of our drums. So just like all the other ones, I'm going to change the routing from the master to the bus. So from master to top line, from master to top line bus, master to top line, and then change top line bus, turn it on to in. Okay, so for this one, same thing, we're going to compress it. This one, I already know, let's use the fat drums. All the drums really just come to life when you use this particular preset. Watch, we'll just A-B it real quick. I want to add a little bit of the reverb as well. We have a UAD reverb from Real Verb Pro on the Send A. This one's on a preset called Clean Studio. I'm going to add a little bit of that reverb to this top line bus. Not much. I mean, just a night and day difference here. You can take a look at the compressor settings here if you want. The attack and release. This time long attack, long release, and the ratio is up higher. Usually the last ones have been 4, this one time it's 8. It's a little bit more extreme this time. And then let's hear the drums now with everything else.
So at this point, I'm happy with the mix. I'd say it's pretty much done. The next step's going to be to sit down and arrange this thing.
Arranging a song is very subjective, and no two people are going to do it exactly the same. So, whether or not you're going to gain something from watching this, I'm not sure, but hopefully you do. It only seemed right to make a video of me arranging this track since I've already gone through and made videos of every other step in the process. As I explained in another video, I believe the one where I was making the keys and making the pad, I like to build a steady loop over here off to the right, and then when I know that I have something that I like and all these individual tracks all work with each other well, then I can take these things and basically copy and paste them over to the left and form a song, basically from the beginning to the end, using all of my components here. Just hearing this for the first time in, I don't know, probably a week or something, feels a little way too fast, so I'm going to slow it down. First thing I gotta do is decide what I'm gonna start with. So what I like to do is listen to the track and mute certain things and solo certain things and see if I can get some combinations that I like. That's basically what it's all about, just listening and finding different combinations. So I like that combination, especially for the beginning. Maybe just like the very front of it, we'll have just that thin pad. Along with our Rhodes sound. Also, since this is the lo-fi track, we're going to be sure and not forget our little vinyl crackle here. And that's going to be going through the whole song, so I mean, I know right off the bat I can grab that and use that whole thing right there. Copy, Command C, go over here and hit Command V for paste. And honestly, we can probably just hit Command D, and I see I'm already like around the 5-minute mark. and that's going to be long enough. Usually in lo-fi hip-hop, beats are not very long, a minute or two. For anybody that listened to the last album that I put out, you'll know that I didn't stick to that format, and I really tried to purposely focus and concentrate on making full-length tracks. Just as a personal preference, I like to hear full-length tracks. I figure if you do enough in the arrangement and you make enough parts and enough changes, then people won't get bored. The problem is a lot of songs are just one loop, and if you don't do the one loop thing, then people won't get bored if the thing's 3 minutes long or 4 even. So that's what we're going to do here with this one as well. So I've got this vinyl crackle. It's going all the way over to 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And then we'll grab those two things that we chose. So this thin pad, we'll just grab that, because who knows how many times we're going to use it, and I can always just duplicate that piece. Cool. Okay, I think I also want to include this little swell effect that we made. I don't know what else to call it, but so we'll put that here and then duplicate that. So let's give that a listen. Okay, cool. So we always want something to be changing. It's really important, especially if we're not going to do like a 1 minute or 2 minute long loop. We want things that are going to actually change. We want changes to occur at a constant rate. Almost every, see, I've got the little loop bracket here. I'm using that as not just a loop so I can hear the parts continuously, but also I'm using it kind of as a marker. So, I know this is an 8-bar section here, and when we move it over, we can move it to where the end of that one was, and we know where our next 8 bars are. And I can work on each 8 at a time. And usually what I try to do is have something change every 8 at least. If I go 16 and nothing's changed, usually for me that's too long. That's about the time that I start getting bored. So on this particular thing, one of the tricks that we could do would be to mess with this Rhodes a little bit. I have an EQ8 on here, and we can use that as a filter basically. So I can use this as a low pass filter, but notice there are no lows here. So if I bring the filter all the way down, then the Rhodes will essentially disappear. Now, I don't want it to disappear, obviously, but I do want it to slowly rise up. Seems like a decent point. Now, the question is, how far down do we start it?
Alright, so we're going to go to the next 8. And I was thinking, probably actually not use this yet until we get to this next 8. So I'm going to hit duplicate, Command D, and then I will erase this. Something like the crackle, I'm going to put, I just like to group things together. The crackle I'll put at the top because it's something that I'm not really going to have to fuck with too much. And then this one, it's a little effect, but it's also part of the crackle. I'll keep them next to each other. These two, they're both part of the melody bus. I'll put them together. When we start working with the keys track, I'll also leave it where it is because it's also part of the melody bus. So I'm going to have these things continue over here. The thin pad, I didn't make any automation choices on it, so I can actually use this and just hit Command D. This has automation, so if I duplicate it, it's going to duplicate the automation with it. So I'm not going to do that. I'll just slide back over here and grab this, Command C, go back, Command V, paste. Take a little bit of the tops off of this rose. At this point, I want to introduce some drums. So I'm not going to introduce all of them. I think I'm just going to start with, well, let's figure out which ones I'm going to start with. So this is what we have playing right now at the beginning. I don't like things to be the same color for no reason, so change those to blue. A little neurotic on my end, but whatever. So I like this, or we could do just kick only. Kick has all this power, so I don't want that power to happen yet because it's a little bit too early in this song. I think I'm just going to do snare and hat for now. Command C. So I'm going to keep these going. Command D, duplicate. So remember, I'm working with 8-bar increments. So here's the first 8, second 8, here's the third 8. So that's why I grabbed this whole thing and duplicate it. And then same here, duplicate. So this is working as an intro for us. And then after 8 bars, and which is roughly 15 to 20 seconds. Then it ramps up to the next thing, which is going to be the addition of the hi-hats and the snares. And then once we get to this 8, and it's played this whole highlighted section, then we're going to be done with the intro. That's enough at that point. So at this point, we need to have everything kind of drop in. What's going to give it the power of dropping in? It's going to be the kick and the bass. At this point, the low end, the bottom end comes in, and we know that the song has officially started. Okay, so we'll grab kick, and we want to grab the bass. Now, remember we did 2 different bass lines I recorded with my bass guitar. One of them was a low bass, and the other was a high bass. I'm not going to grab both of those. I'm going to just use the low bass for now. I'm really only concerned with emphasizing bottom end at this point. Let's move on to the next 8. Actually, first, before we do that, sometimes it helps to have something drop out right before something else comes in. So, for example, here we play just the pad and the Rhodes, and then we have the snare and hats come in with it. There's nothing really to drop out from these two. It sounds fine to have it keep going. It would be a little awkward actually to drop something out. However, here I have a feeling that if we take out this piece, yeah, I like that. Puts a little pause on the drums, just enough a little pause to help emphasize when the drums actually do come in. We'll have this thing that we just did, so this 8 bars, we'll have that play again, but we do need to change something if we're going to stick to my little rule that I like to do. So for now, let's just move everything that we have. We'll duplicate that over and then figure out what we're going to do. I know that I'm going to add something. I think what I'm going to do is add these tambourines here. So this will tambourines give it a little bit more movement. They give the illusion of like picking up the pace because they're playing on 16th or 8th notes rather. So it's not a huge change, but it is indeed a change, and it does make a difference in the feel overall. Again, here with this one, I will do the same dropout technique. And that really emphasizes the change with the tambourines. The tams come in. at this point, I'd really like to hear some vocals come in. So let's go over here and grab one of these vocal parts. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I just have to remember that it starts, I can't have the clip start exactly on the 1. I have to start it 1/8 note to the left of the 1. However, the cool thing with Ableton is I don't have to grab the whole thing. I can actually just grab this, hit Command C, because I know that this is where the 1 is, and then I just gotta drag it out over there. So we'll come back over here, and then we'll paste it right there on the 1, and then, like I said, just drag it out, right?
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Boom. So I really like how that sounds, just having it play like that. So let's just go with that then, and we'll keep with our every 8 bars plan. So let's move this. There you go. And then we'll basically, let's just copy everything we have here. Paste it over here. We don't need this little piece of the vocal that got grabbed. And then we'll remove everything that's playing while this vocal is, to recreate what we just heard a second ago when we moved it over here.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man. They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Okay, so a couple things. Maybe we won't have it be completely quiet. Maybe we'll use this thin pad. So the beginning half of the thin pad just plays out as usual, and the second half is an actual pitch bend. The pitch goes up. This happens to be the second half because the first half's there. So let's use the second half, the one with the pitch change. Hit copy, Command C, Command V, paste.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Okay, you can hear that the kick, the first hit isn't hitting, probably because of the swing of the kick, the MIDI note. Yeah, see, the MIDI note here is actually overlapping a little bit to the left of the beginning of that segment, so it's not actually playing that note. So let's drag it out just a hair, and let's see here.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Still missing something. Rhythmically, it just kind of dies out since we took everything away, every aspect of the drums. Maybe if we have something like the hat or the tambourine play over it to kind of keep the rhythm going. See what that does.
They know me as Derek. there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
It's just a little too much. I'm thinking, yeah, maybe we can change this up a little bit. These are the hats, they're not actually even playing. That might be confusing for you guys. These MIDI clips here, they are just tambourines. So these hats, remember from another video, I don't know if you remember, but we solo the tambourine. So none of these other notes are playing. Let me just get rid of them so that it doesn't cause confusion for people. So okay, so I'll just do it over here too. Alright, so my thought is to get rid of every other one of these hits. That way, yeah, it'll kind of slow things down. Watch. Perfect. I want like a drum hit to happen right before it goes back into the beat. So let's just drag out a little bit of the snare.
They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Let's see what's up with the kicks too.
They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man. But niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man. Scheme, man. Know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
So let's just leave the one kick right there.
They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Perfect. This thin pad, I'm kind of gonna fade it out a little bit at the end of it. It'll help accentuate these drum hits because it'll just kind of simplify things at that very moment.
They know me as there if a They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man. They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
When you're gonna have something come in, like the beat, it all comes in right here at this moment. You can make that more impactful by having the things right before that drop in kind of drop out a little bit, and then it'll kind of give the illusion that the one or the beginning of that thing that's going to drop in is bigger than it actually is.
They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
I might even, with that theory, want to get rid of this crackle. This already ends right before. And maybe even this tambourine. Let's listen.
Know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Yeah, all of those little things really help to emphasize that pause. Alright, so let's see here, we've got this little section.
They know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Now at this point we really want to bring in something to create a bigger change. So we've got the vocal that comes in, and then that signifies an even greater change that's going to happen. On this I'm thinking probably even take that out, maybe just this part.
Know me as there if a nigga don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
There we go. That's good. Okay, so what do we have that we can put in here for the next major change? So let's go back over here to our loop, and we have keys. We've got our sample that we started with, our high bass line, and another vocal. Let's go with the chop sample. I want to save the keys for the last thing that we'll put in there.
Know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Okay, so just by habit, I put this MIDI clip right here at the beginning of what I gotta remember that this is not the one here. Bar 35 is not the one. The one is bar 33. So we'll put that there, duplicate, and then we'll remove this. And same goes for, I want to incorporate the high bass here. So we're going to do the same thing here, and then remove this section.
They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
So here I'm thinking I want to do this same thing we did over here, but like a different variation of it. So let me hit Command C. I'm going to copy that and paste it over here.
They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm.
I think this time I want this high bass to play.
Know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
And then same thing we did here to keep the rhythm, this tambourine.
Know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Boom. Edit the endings of these drums to match what I did over here. Basically remove the last quarter note.
They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
These little vinyl effects we'll just duplicate. So on this one, it's a variation of what we did over here. However, this time, instead of having the pad play, we're having the high bass thing play. And I'm also going to make it different. And whereas this time around, we have our standard 8-bar section, and this little pause thing with the vocal was the first 2 bars of the 8, right? You see that? Whereas here, what I'm going to do this time, instead of continuing on with the 8-bar pattern, having the next one start on 41, I'm actually going to start the next one on 43 and let this little 2-bar segment from bar 41 to bar 43, I'm going to let it play out on its own as its own little 2-bar thing. I want everything that happens after this to do like a full cycle. I don't want the first quarter of it, the first fourth, so the first 2 bars to be delegated to this little pause thing. It's just going to be there on its own merit. So basically I'm going to come back over here. We'll just grab everything that we need, which is pretty much everything at this point. So, as you can see, hopefully what I meant was clear now.
They know me a dairy, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
So I am missing this, the vinyl effect. So I'm gonna go over here and grab that. Okay, so this is just gonna play these 8 bars. When the next 8 come, starting at 51, that's when we need to make another major change. So I know already I want these to happen, so I'm just gonna duplicate them. Let's just put it there. Let's put everything there, and then see. We'll use like the mute button and find out what we want to get rid of. So I'm just going to duplicate it over. Okay, so we had this little 2-bar thing, and then it went into basically everything in its entirety, minus the keys. And then the next change we want, I can't really add more things. The only thing that's left is the keys. So here for a change, what we're going to do, we'll do is a takeaway rather than add things. So let's see. I want to bring it down in energy, so I know for sure I'm not going to have tambourines. And let's see. Let's get rid of this sample. This might actually be the point in time where we bring in the keys part. I feel like the keyboards overlapping with the Rhodes might be a bit too much. Let's get rid of that real quick and see how that sounds. My thought is to bring it way down. So even these hi-hats are adding too much energy. So let's get rid of those. And the bass, definitely the top bass complicates things. Try and mute this bass. Oh. Okay, let me listen to what happens. I really like when this is gone. I think it's gonna have a big impact when we go from having that play and then having it just disappear right here. So let's try it. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I might put some of the vocal here as well. Let's give that a try then. Grab this Command C. Not there. Maybe. So, I mean, it's an obvious choice since it's kind of in keeping with what we've been doing with them so far. Because of that, I want to keep things interesting, so I am going to make some changes to this. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is with the particular style of hip-hop that this vocal is taken from, it was really popular to do, the whole chopped and screwed thing, so pitching it down would be a good option. I mean, it's already pitched down 3 semitones, but to go a little further with it would be kind of cool, so I'm going to try that. Maybe because it's in texture mode, let's try some of these other. That sounds kind of funny. It's only because the formants are so high, so let's try mess around with the formants. That sounds cool. It's competing with the keyboard. I mean, we could probably gonna have to just turn it up a little bit. I'm also thinking maybe we won't let the whole thing play out. Just kind of end it a little early. We'll end it at the word skinny. I think it's here. Yeah, that's cool because you can hear the delay. The delay. Maybe I'll automate this delay to come up here. Always been a fan of a nice healthy delay tail. This here feels like a bridge, and so after that is probably when you want to come in with pretty much everything you've got on the whole arrangement. Let's try that. Let's give it all we got here. So can't forget about the keyboard here. And then how this comes up like that, I think I want to keep it up there like that. That way we give it the sense of things kind of opening up. Gets a little bit bigger, like a little more in your face. I would also say this is probably a good spot to use the rest of those vocals that we have over here. Let's Command C, drop them in there. Like to kind of make a little delay tail like we did here on this part, but overall I have it turned down, you know, around here a little more than it is on all these other parts, just because there's so many words. I don't want it to get too jumbled up by all the delay happening. Let's see, should we put this chop sample here or no? Command C, Command V. Yeah, I can do without these. It's funny, the whole song started with that sample, and I ended up adding so many other elements to it that I kind of don't even need that here. I also feel like the tambourines might be a too much here. So again, this ends with a little bit of a tail. That always kind of makes me feel like I want to drop things out again. Let's just kind of go with that. Probably keep these pads. I feel like this just adds, the pads are just kind of like a, necessary. It kind of feels too empty and too naked without it. So keyboards, we've only barely started using them, so I would like to include them again. So I'm going to hit Command D. Just give that a listen. I still feel like I want to soften the keys up a little bit. That's okay. Let's try and incorporate this as well. Maybe not on the first half. I feel like since this starts here, I want to start rhythmic element as well, so maybe we'll just use this more basic tambourine. always more effective to put pauses of some sort right before you go into a breakdown or coming out of them as well. Also, I'm thinking with these keys, because we always want to have something changing, we want to have some sort of movement. I can, do the opposite basically of what we did here. We had them filtered, had the highs filtered out, and then it swooped in and really opened up a little more here. And then here I want to go the opposite route. Filter off the highs. So first obvious thing is going to be our little effect here. I do want to make sure, however, that I'm grabbing the right ones. As I glance here, I can see that they're all the same size, which means they're all the same ones. Here I've rotated them. Essentially it's going to be that little and big and little big. So I'm going to hit Command C, copy that, and then come over here where I notice that starting and swap it out. Just delete all that, Command V, paste, duplicate, and I want that to play here as well where we're starting our new piece, so I'm going to duplicate that as well there. As I explained before, pads, I don't want to do without them, I just want to include them on each part, so I'm going to leave that there. The Rhodes as well. And the keys. It's just so happen to be on a loop, so I can pull those out. And we'll continue our drums as well. Let's hit Command D, Command D. I think that the bass has been gone long enough. Let's bring that back in. Command C, Command V. Let's pick the pace back up and bring this tambourine back. These are the same, again, just a little confusing, I know, because I still have the MIDI notes for these hats that we're not using in there. Just get rid of that so I'm not confusing everybody. Alright, so we can grab this whole thing. Here we go. Just glancing down here and looking at the actual timeline, seeing where we're at, we're already, 3 minutes is over here. So for this song, I don't really want to go any longer than this actually. This might be a good time to just kind of fade it out. See how that goes. Just use a utility plugin, put on the master, just kind of get a general idea of how it sounds to fade out on this. Probably start somewhere around here. Probably going to need it to be a little bit longer of a fade than that. Actually, I'm gonna try to do a fade that's a little more rapid than this. Let's see here. Alright, so pretty happy with that. As far as arrangement goes, we are officially done. The next video, the last thing that I'm gonna do at this point is just go through and create some, I don't know how else to call it, but people are calling it a tape stop effect. It's basically the sound it makes when you hit stop on a cassette tape or a reel-to-reel or even a record if you just put your hand on it and stop the record. The pitch goes down and the record slows down to a stop, or the tape slows down to a stop all at once. There's a few different ways to create this effect, and I'll show you all three of them real quick, and then the last one will be the true way, the way that I'll go with. So the first step would be to open up an audio track. It looks like I have one right here. Let's name this tape stop. So what I'm gonna do might seem like some sort of long, tedious process, but it's really not that bad. So I want to record basically everything onto this track right here. I basically just need to go through the tracks that I have, and I need to change the output for them to go to this tape stop channel. So this is the crackle, and I might as well rename things. If I didn't name the track, then I might as well rename it now. I should have done that the whole time. It really does make everything so much easier. Anyways, crackle effect, change master here to tape stop. The vocals I'm also going to put to tape stop. Kick, tape stop. And then these snare, hats, tambourines, they're all running to top line bus. So really I only have to put top line bus to tape stop. The chopped sample is going to master, so we'll change that to tape stop. The thin pad, Rhodes, keys, all are going to melody bus, so we'll change melody bus to tape stop. High bass, low bass, both going to bass bus, so we'll change that to tape stop. And there's tape stop. Okay, so now what I want to do is just kind of give the song a listen and figure out where exactly I would want to put some of these effects. Don't forget, since you're routing everything to this track, to click the in button here. It's going to be set to off default. You need to click in, record arm it, so press that record button. So far, I don't want to put that effect anywhere here. I think that, so I'm thinking right here, right before it first goes into the little vocal thing. So what we'll do is come on down here to our tape stop track and select with the cursor where you want to begin recording. Once you select where you want to begin recording, which would be 31 here, I can even add a little marker for myself by hitting Control and then clicking or right-clicking right there and select Add Locator, and I could just put effects 1, that'll be the first one, and hit record. One thing that I almost forgot, and this is important because in this track I have been running a reverb here on one of the sends, have been running some of these tracks through that reverb, so whatever I record here is actually going to be completely dry if I don't remember to send my reverb channel into this tape stop channel as well. So here where it says master, just like we did with the other ones, we're going to send that to tape stop. Now I can go in and safely record.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Okay, so let's try and figure out where else we want this. We could do it here.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the
Or
scheme, man.
there. I don't know, so we did it. We're gonna do it over here right before this vocal. Instead of copying that and doing that over again, perhaps we should do that. Let's do it at the end of this one.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Alright, there's a nice chunk, and we'll keep listening and try to decide where else we want to do this. I feel like the transition into this is good. Without that, it doesn't really need it. Possibly here. Yep, that would be awesome there. So let's come back a little ways. Alright, so we've got that recorded here. Okay, so I didn't really hear anything else stand out to me too much. There's a few different ways that I've seen people do this. One of the more obvious ways would be to use the pitch envelope on this audio here. So basically, if we are wanting to create the effect on this section here, what we would do is isolate it on its own. What I like to do, you could do it a couple ways. You could just trim off the fat and leave what you want, or another way to do it would just be to select what you want and hit Command E, and then that separates it, and you can just get rid of this stuff however you want to do it. So anyways, you just isolate that on its own, and then everything that this is going to take the place of, you're going to select it and then delete it. So in theory, when we listen back to this, it should play right through as if nothing's happening. Now, before we do that, we have to change the outputs of all these channels back to the master again. So we'll start here with our reverb, put that back to master, and everything that we have that says tape stop on it, we got to put back to master. Alright, so let's listen back and make sure that this plays appropriately how it's supposed to. So you could hear the clip happen. What I want to do is just check the fades. So as I suspected, there's no fade. You want to zoom in real good and just put a tiny little fade on there. So what a lot of people would do would be to come here and select transposition modulation. And now with that, you can adjust the pitch. Something like that. Or make it a little bit more abrupt. So, you know, that sounds okay. You're missing now this little piece, but you know, you could do something like that. But you know, to me that still doesn't sound right. And part of the reason for that is because this is warped. So even though I am dropping the pitch down on it, it's not slowing it down. And if you think about the way it actually works when you push the stop button or you put your hand on the record and stop it, you are indeed slowing it down. When it right before it comes to a stop, it's slowing down a little bit. That's what's actually creating the pitch drop, is because the track itself is slowing down. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I don't like that. It is a quick little way to do it though. The other thing I've seen would be with a delay. So if you take a simple delay, you put it on here, and then you would have to hit link, hit the sync button so that you can adjust the milliseconds, and then you have to change the mode of the delay so it comes as fade in fade mode. You have to change it to repitch. This will actually change the pitch of the audio when you adjust the time of the delay. Alright, so let's give this a listen. So that also does a speeding up, as you can see. And you could do something like, you know, chop off a part. You would also need to automate this as well. So, you know, you just adjust. So, that's another way to do it. Neither of those are my favorite. The one that I like to do is a little bit more involved, but in my opinion, definitely worth it. You're going to want to open a MIDI track. Shift Command T gets you a new MIDI track. And then we're going to go to Instruments and grab a sampler. So put the sampler on there. And now we need to determine exactly where we're going to have this effect happen. And it's probably going to be at the very end, like we were doing with the delay just now when we were creating the effect with the delay. So it's okay to use this entire piece here. I do want that fade to be incorporated in. So there's a couple ways I could do that. I could either consolidate this piece of audio, so that way when I drag it into the sampler, it will include that fade. Or we can just go into the global control here and just adjust the attack time. Put a little bit of attack on there and it'll give you the same exact effect as using a fade. So I'll just use that technique. So drop that in, and now I want to create a MIDI clip that's the exact length of this audio clip that we just used. So I'm going to highlight there and hit Shift Command M. That gives us our MIDI clip. Double click on that, and C3 is going to be your MIDI note that will play this sample back in the exact pitch and therefore speed as the original. If you don't, and you put it anywhere else along the piano roll, then you'll find that this sample will play back at a different pitch than the original. So now we've put this piece of audio into the sampler, so we can now mute this track, or we can deactivate this audio clip. I believe the command for that is 0. Yeah, so if you just select it and hit 0, that will activate or deactivate that clip. Sometimes that's better to do than muting, because we are going to need to hear the track again over here. So, alright, so let's go to our MIDI track and go to our sampler. Now, the first thing we want to do is check on our global and filter settings. We don't want to use a filter, so I'm just going to turn that off. And then over here, you have to make sure that your global settings are set correctly. Right now, it does have this release on here. What that means is after the MIDI note has ended here, it will continue playing a little bit of the tail end of what comes after. Now, we don't want that because we have the rest of our track starting here anyways. Okay, so I'm going to bring that release to all the way over or all the way down. You can use this part, or you can use the actual little line graph. Make sure loop is off, voices, you really only need one, and velocity needs to be turned all the way down. And very important, you need to have the volume here turned up to 0. 0 is the nominal level for this. If you were to leave it there, it would be much quieter, 12 dBs exactly below where everything else is. So now you just want to check back by giving it a listen and make sure it plays smoothly. And lo and behold, I do hear a little tiny clip in there when this starts. So we are going to do what I was talking about earlier and adjust the attack time. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is come over here to the MIDI tab. It's the last tab, and where it says pitch bend range, it's set to +5 semitones. We need to crank that all the way up to +24, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so we'll double click on the MIDI clip, and that brings us down here to our piano roll and where we can adjust the envelope. Click on that, and it already has pitch bend selected. In the same way that we were able to modulate the transposition of the audio clip up here, we can change the pitch bend of the sample as it plays. This will not only change the pitch of the sample, but because it's playing in a sampler, when the pitch changes, the speed of it also changes. So this will give us an exact sound as tape or record speeding up or slowing down. Alright, so now we can just listen back and kind of mess around with it.
They know me as Derek, know me as Derek.
So as you can see, much more accurate sounding stop effect. Now the cool thing is you can play around with this a whole bunch. You can make it go up and down and all over the place. So
know me as Derek. Know me as Derek. Know me as Derek.
you can mess with it throughout the whole entire sample if you want.
Know me as Derek.
Also, I notice it sounds a lot better if you remove just a hair, the bit of the end off.
Know me as Derek. Know me as Derek. They know me as Derek. They know me as Derek. They know me as Derek.
I mean, that just sounds ridiculous. So we won't get all crazy like that, but
They know me as Derek. 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 They know me as Derek.
also when you're moving this around, it's hard to, sometimes get it exactly where you want to get it back on 0, for instance. So if you hold down the command button while you move these points around, then you get a much finer control over it. Another thing that you can do is hold down the Alt key or Alt or Option, and when you have the blue angled line selected, it gives you this little tool here, and that allows you to create curves. These curved lines definitely come in handy. Let's see what we could do here.
They know me as Derek. They know me as Derek.
Sounds kind of cool.
They know me as Derek. They know me as Derek. Niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
So at the moment, I'm happy with that.
They know me as Derek, but niggas don't know that I'm skinny with all of the scheme, man.
Alright, so I wasn't planning on having this video go this long. I'm going to end it here because from this point on, all I really have to do is continue this process on the other 2 places in this track where I wanted the effect to happen. Believe it or not, this is actually the end. The last thing that I do is basically bounce this track out onto the 4-track cassette deck and get a little tape hiss from that, do a little EQ on that, and also play with the pitch knob ever so slightly to kind of give it a little old warbly type of effect. I think I'll make a quick video just showing that process, and that'd be it. So thanks to everybody for watching this, and I hope you guys got something out of this one. And please be sure to like and share and comment below and subscribe to the channel for more tutorials and updates and original content. Thanks guys.